If you think I need you, come on over.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Under the Fala. I'm Tisha.
I'm Better.
I'm Lita.
And this is episode 3. So this week's new topic is sex education in the home.
In the family.
Why were we inspired to change the topic? No, that wasn't why. That wasn't why. It wasn't because of the Bridgerton series, but I mean, it was a really good lesson.
Actually, it was a very good lesson.
It was a good lesson.
What was a good lesson?
Bridgerton.
Have you seen Bridgerton?
If you haven't seen Bridgerton, definitely go and see Bridgerton.
We'll put the link. No, I'm kidding.
Are we plugging Netflix now?
Yeah, it's a good series. So normally we start with our statistics or facts, and our stats and facts girl is
Moi. I had some facts, but you know, obviously we're talking about in the home, but I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a different perspective around what's currently happening in general, okay? Because I think it's very, very interesting. So it was pretty cool to see that government schools, 54% of 54.6% of government schools were actually teaching sexual education. Independent schools were 21% of sexual education. And then
just because they're Catholic.
Catholic schools only 24.4%.
how much?
24, so they had more than...
So not a lot.
But that's not even, I'm not even surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all.
I know. I think it was just really good to see because it is a little bit different, especially when it comes to Polynesians, because we're very religious people. And so I think that just kind of comes in.
We're Polynesian and we're religious. I mean, it's like we're double screwed, to be honest. Did you find anything on like sex? Were there any statistics about sex education being taught in homes or?
Not yet, but let me get back to that, okay?
Okay. No, that's cool.
I think before we even get into that, just defining, I guess, what sex education, you know, is that we're talking about. So we're not just talking about sexual intercourse, like the actual action of having sex. It is also making our children aware of things like consent, boundaries, what I'm comfortable with, what people can and can't do with me, all that kind of stuff.
Do you want to start with like maybe our own experiences, like any conversations around sexual education, or where did you kind of have to go in? You know, in the home, nothing. I think, to be honest, the first time the first time being taught anything regarding even remotely close to sex education would probably be church, like youth, like the strength of So the pamphlet that talks about the sex or sexual purity. That's honestly probably the first time, but even then it wasn't really like you don't dive in. It's just like, okay, read this. I learned more off of TV and
from parents,
rather than from parents or teachers.
My experience growing up, very similar to Tisha's one. Like we would talk about the law of chastity and how sex before marriage is a no. You know, that's probably as far as it got. You know, there wasn't really a lot of education specifically about a lot of things. Even for like when I got my period, it was only because I knew my sisters had it. So I was prepared for that, but not because it was something that was taught to us. And we didn't really go into the whole, this is what's happening to your body, this is why, this is what you need to do, how long it's going to last for. And to be very honest with you, I actually did not know anything about ovulation until I got married. So that was my experience. Like, and it was mainly church, they'll talk about it, but it was all just no sex before marriage. I
reckon it was more so like, this is the law of chastity and this is what breaking the law of chastity looks like. It was like dot point of what we're not allowed to do, like no picking, no kissing, no pashing, like no rubbing, no lying on top of each other, even with your clothes on. Like
the only why that they really gave they shared was, or we were taught, was because it was a sacred thing.
Yeah,
you know, it
the
was
importance of sex. Yeah,
that's really it. Not because of, and
Mm.
well, they would tell us, you know, you could get pregnant and stuff like that, but there wasn't really a lot of in-depth education that came from that.
Well, in my home, my mother, it was quite the opposite, actually. So my mum was huge on this kind of stuff. Like, I remember from a very young age, her talking to me about my private parts, my body being a temple, my body being sacred, no one's allowed to touch it, I can't touch anyone else's, just all that kind of stuff. Like, and it was so awkward, you know, like, especially when she starts talking and pointing, and I'm like, but I'm so glad we had the awkward conversations then, because then it kind of, you know, prepared me, yeah, for just, I guess, stuff. Yeah. So you just kind of knew that what was and wasn't okay.
Yeah. And for me as well, it's so important that we educate it in the home. Literally, the main reason I would say is to protect your kids.
It's for their safety.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, if anything, it's not really, for me, it's like, it's not just to educate them so then they don't fall pregnant or they don't get STDs, because that's the main reason why people do sexual education, and that's what they say.
Cool.
The whole reason why they do it is to prevent pregnancy, teen pregnancy, and to prevent sexual transmitted diseases. That's their reasons why they do it. But for me, when I listen to what you say and when I've read a lot of things, it's mainly to protect. We put a question out there on Instagram, and the question was, do you think it's important that we educate, or we have sexual education in our homes? Majority of the people said yes, but surprisingly, still a lot of
a couple of no's.
We had a couple of no's. Does that make sense?
Question, your no's, were they male or female?
Mainly female. Mainly female.
Really?
I know. I was surprised too. Some of them are.
So I had a couple of no's, and they were male, and I feel like it was just over being uncomfortable. Like, is this a mum job?
No, but I had some mums say no.
Mums?
It'd be good, yeah. Some mums say no. So it'd be good to see, because let's go through some of the responses that we got, and then we can elaborate a little bit more on every single one of them.
Okay. Yeah, we got a lot of really good responses. Obviously, there's way too many for us to cover. And one of our followers replied or responded, and they actually do teach sex education in the home. And she said the reason why she taught why her and her husband do teach sex education in the home, she was getting married. Like, she had no talks. She went in blind. So I think as soon as she kind of got married and realized, you know, how big of a deal it is, and how big of it is a big part of marriage. And I feel like it's something we need to be prepared for. And so she said, as soon as she got married and, you know, realized all of that, she was like, nah, as soon as my daughters or my kids get to an appropriate age, I'm going to teach them. Actually, I think she was the only one.
Very rare.
She was one of the only ones that actually responded with, they do, like, a lot of them agreed to saying that it's important to teach, but she was the only one that had actually said that she does teach it in her home, and, you know, why she teaches in her home, which I thought was really cool.
Okay, can we then, I think Jolie, it'll be good for this because you've got children. I don't know if you've started to do it with your children yet, but it'll be cool for us to, for those people who had said yes but actually don't do it in their homes, what are some things that you actually say to your children so that others can maybe use it for themselves?
We have definitely started, like, we've done it for a wee while now, from when the kids were young. Like, pretty much as soon as they started, like, knowing the difference between their private parts, noticing sort of thing. Because, you know, the girls, they get to an age where they're like, oh, how come his one's different? You know, and then they start asking questions. And so it's just answering those kinds of questions. So there's several things that we try to do. So firstly is we use the proper terms for their private parts. So we will call it a penis, we will call it a vagina, we will say, or, you know, your, you know, that kind of stuff. The only reason is because, like, I hear of people, you know, calling it by nicknames, you know, your pet, your cookie, your whatever. But I feel like it's really important for them to know the correct term, just having open conversations, because I want my kids to feel comfortable coming to me if something happens.
Yeah.
So trying to make it as comfortable for them as possible. So we do regular check-ins. You know, if I know that they've been hanging out with older cousins as well, you know, not just adults, but sometimes the older ones, they know a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they might try to do things or try to, you know, play, whatever. So we talk a lot about that. Yeah, experiment. So we're always checking in with that kind of stuff as well. We do it together, like with all the kids, but we also do it individually, just in case someone doesn't want to say something in front of, you know, their brother and sister or whatever.
That's a good idea.
But yeah, I don't feel like there's a right or wrong way. Like, you do what works for you, you do what works for your kids. I guess just making sure that you're on top of, and you know, because obviously you're not going to be there all the time. You can't sit with your kid 24/7. You can't, you know, protect them like that. So arming them with this information is the best protection you can give. The other thing we do is we talk about, you know, like boundaries, but in relation to private parts, we always say to them, whatever your togs cover, no one can touch. So that's something that's kind of stuck with them and just helps them.
That's a really good
as
way.
Well.
I
think it's pretty funny because, like, even polys, what I've realized is that we won't be taught at all, and then all of a sudden, come wedding day, it's like, and that's what they keep saying, right? They keep talking about it. It's like, oh, so you didn't tell me anything about that, but now you want me to go implant some, make sure my coconut tree.
But how do I make the new? Like,
exactly. I found that they were very, like, my aunties and stuff, we would always joke around about it. Like, they'll joke around about it, especially when we got older. When we were younger, it was like, no, you can't say that type of thing. But then when you started to grow up, you started to actually have jokes with them. Like, we would joke around with our aunts and stuff about it, even though they know that we're not.
Do you know what's funny? We were talking about this last night when I was with some of the girls, how it's so easy for polys to talk about things when they're making jokes about it. And they literally do it because it's the only way they know how. It's like, they don't want it to come off serious, so they're like, ha, 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 like, laugh it off, because they know they're just not.
It's the vulnerability, you know, they're afraid of the reaction as well. Because, you know, if you make a joke about it, you can gauge kind of where people are at. Whereas if you 100%. Say it seriously, it's like,
and then you kind of know who you, that's true. It's like, I think now as an adult, you kind of, when you are a bit more serious about those conversations around people, you actually see that a lot of them want to actually talk about these things, but they don't know who to talk to about it, because they think everyone else is thinking the same thing. Like, it's like, where's the serious conversations or the important conversations?
And also, like, this whole, because you've been raised with these taboo topics that you just don't touch, like, I think that also has a big, like, it plays a big part in what people will actually discuss. Because, you know, it's like the no-go zone. Like, you just don't go there, not seriously anyway. So if you crack a joke about it, it kind of softens the blow or whatever. But this is the whole point. This is why we want to do this, because we want everyone to be comfortable talking about the stuff that needs to be spoken about.
Because it's managed to talk about serious topics like that.
Because I think it's, like, really cool.
Love a guy that can communicate.
We should definitely do one. You should talk about the body parts, name them correctly. 2, I think it's important to talk about puberty, because puberty is very much where it stems, right? Like, a lot of the stuff, like, when you start hitting puberty, that's when a lot of the stuff starts to happen. And then talking about actually having sex, because let's face it, kids who are 11 years old right now are having sex right now, while we're
How
here
insane is that?
In our PJs doing this podcast.
11.
Like,
from 1, grade 7.
Much as, you know, because I feel like a lot of the common responses we got were we didn't have to talk.
It's pretty much the same with every, you know, kind of every other topic that we've come through. They only did what they knew.
Yeah, well, that's
sort of thing. Like, but I think it's so cool because there's so many who didn't have it in their home, but practice it in their home.
No,
Yeah,
like because they didn't have it, it's like, I'm going to make sure that my kids know, or, you know, that they don't have to go in blind like I did.
Yeah, and I think it's because of social media plays a really big part, because there is so much out there now and people are starting to see
so many resources.
Wow, there's so much happening. There's a lot of sexual abuse that's happening from this. There's a lot of teen pregnancies. There's a lot of STDs, STIs. And so people are now being smarter and actually just preparing their children for it. And they don't necessarily have to be the ones who have experienced it, but because they want to prevent their kids from experiencing that, they're starting to teach it.
Now why people want to teach it. And that's
when you were saying that, Tasha, I honestly want everyone to realize all the hard topics, all the hard things that you have to decide, or discussions, those are the ones that really give you progress. Like, so if everyone just remembers that, like, as hard as they are, they're the only ones that are really going to bring growth.
I think our parents thought that they were doing us a favor in a way.
Because
I think they were more worried about protecting us from it rather than preparing us for it. Because I remember we weren't allowed sleepovers. Never.
Like, the sleepovers were a no-go. Like, absolutely not. I remember as a kid, like, you know, you have your school camps.
Yeah.
My mum would drive me to the school camp and then pick me up at the end of the day so that I can go sleep in my own bed. I could barely sleep over at my cousin's house, let alone a freaking
But yeah, I think that, but like, I mean, it was like, we get it, like why they're protecting us from, but at the same time, I think prevention is better than cure. Absolutely. We learn it the hard way. Here we are.
Like, there's a lot of them that were saying, I'd rather my kid hear it from me correctly than from their friends incorrectly. So I think that was a lot, that had a lot to do with it as well, was, you know, children or our kids discussing it with their peers. You know, they get of age, they're curious, they're asking questions, and just that whole I want them to hear it from me sort of thing.
Well, it's not because, like, when you're going through puberty, like, there's actual changes that happen with your body. They, of course, are going to be very, very curious as to what's happening. And it's either you turn on or your friends.
21. Like, there's things, inappropriate things on TikTok, YouTube. You can they literally, and kids have phones at the age of 12, 10, even younger. So they have access to all that stuff in the palm of their hand.
So, you know, YouTube has that thing trending. So whatever's trending, whatever everyone is watching, will come up as a suggestion for you to, you know, sort of thing. So we have always kept, like, you know, we always try to keep on top of our kids' devices and stuff. So when they go on their devices, making sure we're checking to, you know, see what they have filters and things. We have screen time where, you know, they have to ask permission for us to allow them to go on their iPads or whatever. But honestly, like, you could put all those mechanisms or whatever in place and the world will still get through. So I was doing a check. Actually, I think I went on, it was Darion's device. Darion's 9. He just turned 9 in September. And he had a search that said naked romance. And I was like, the hell? Your dad been on your phone? Or anyway, I called him and I was like, son, come here. And, like, honestly, as a mum, like, straight away, my heart broke. I was like, are you kidding me? You're 9 years old. What the hell are you doing looking this shit up?
Yeah.
So I called him over and I was like, what the hell is this? And he looked at it and he was like, oh. I go, why would you type this in? And he was like, no, mum, it was on trending. And I was like, so what if it was on trending? Why'd you click on it? And he was like, oh, I don't know, it was just there. And, like, you know, how easily someone, like a child, can just click on it. honestly, I was like, frick, you know, obviously I blew my top. You're not having that till kingdom freaking come. Give me that damn device. But like with that just came the realization that it is so effing important to be across this, you know, with our kids, and to make sure that we know what they're doing. Because frick, I thought I had like a bulletproof wall for my children, but nah, obviously not.
Everybody thinks that, you know.
It's funny because
I think so.
even the like I was looking at it yesterday because Baya was like, "What the heck?" I'm like, "What? What are you looking at?" And he's like, "There was this video. It's a kids show. It's a video, and it's like animated and everything. And basically, what it is this man, this robot man thing. He gets dragged around by his penis everywhere he goes. He flies over there, dragged by his penis. It's a kids show. I'm kidding, no joke. It's a kids show." And apparently,
What's it called?
oh, but you know what I mean? Like, it's so innocent to kids. They're like, they laugh about it. But if you think about it, that video, when you're doing YouTube videos and stuff like that, you do a lot of hashtags, and it would have been 100% a hashtag that would have said penis, flying penis or something. And so that then becomes the trending. So I understand what your son's saying. But like, yeah, like you said, it's everywhere, and it happens, and you just can't control it.
Anyway, I want to talk about consent. So someone
I was just gonna
send something in. Do you have that response on you at all?
I have it right here. This one goes, I also think along with sex education is to teach consent. Like, we always get told as kids, go hug that person or go kiss that person. But like, what if your kids don't want to? What if I don't want to, even though I'm grown? Like, the parents harp on and on about being disrespectful to others. They forget they disrespect us when they don't teach us that our no means something. Like, how come my no when I'm a kid doesn't count as much as my no when I'm grown? Do our poly kids understand consent?
That's actually really good, because you know when they're like, kissy.
I hated that, especially when the person they're telling you to go kissy, I remember we used to go to family gatherings, and my mum would be like, "Oh, kissy uncle," and there's like, you know, they're just gonna, everybody has a freaking creepy uncle, cousin, whatever. I kid you not. And if you don't have a creepy uncle, it's probably your dad. You know what I mean? Like there's just those males in the family that maybe drink a little too much, get a little too touchy-feely, and you just hate having to get even close to them. So when your mum or your dad is like, whawhirawai uncle, kissy uncle, blah, 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 and then it's just like, ugh, gross sort of thing. And so I try really hard not to tell my kids to do that. So now it's just like, oh, say hi to uncle, or say hi to blah, blah, blah.
But I get what she means about like the whole, like, consent as in their nose meaning something. Like,
meaning something,
I don't think our nose were never.
Our nose were insignificant, whatever our parents used to go.
Oh, okay. I didn't think no was ever in my vocabulary, to be honest, which is sad. But in general, like, kids know answers, like listening to why they might be saying no, or
ask them why.
Yeah, exactly. How they feel about certain situations, or if it makes them like, oh, do you feel uncomfortable? Like, it's not hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I really think if you talk to your kids and say, if you ever feel uncomfortable
about something, you can say no.
If you don't feel right, you just tell me, and you can, and I'll ask them why. Like, just explain to me so I can understand.
Because I think you get to a certain age as a kid where you start to feel that something isn't right. Like, you get that whole discernment. You can discern whether it's right or wrong sort of thing. I remember as a kid, and I think I wrote about this on Facebook one time, but as a kid we were at my auntie's house. It was an auntie that we hardly ever go to, those ones you see once every 3 or 4 years. But it was like a big family gathering, so everybody was there. But along with the family that I was familiar with, there was an older cousin, a male, who was there, who wasn't related to us. So he was related on the other side, but he happened to be there as well. We were all up in the attic. And I remember he pulls out this page from a porno and opens it up and shows us. Like, we're all little. We were younger than 8. I know that much. But I just remember him opening this page up. And like, even though, like, I don't think I had ever spoken about pornography to anybody, or, you know, that I don't think that was covered, but just, I felt yuck.
Yeah.
Just seeing it. And, you know, I look back now and I realized that I knew that was not okay, you know, at that age. And that's why I felt gross. The thing that gets me is, while this guy is up in the attic showing all the kids this porno page, our parents are in the very same house. They're sitting at the table drinking koko, you know, like having mussy and stuff.
Because
without, but that's the thing, and this is such a common thing, is, you know, the family gets it together is because the parents want to catch up and the kids just run around and play. But if we are not teaching our children, they're not going to understand all these things. And
even with, you know, consent, like, I think it teaches them a lot too about trust. And if you teach your kids that their no's and yeses mean something, they trust you. And if you don't, they think that whatever you say is what is right. Like, when uncles and that tell them to do things, because they're an adult figure, they just think in their mind is, I have to say yes.
I have to listen.
It would be disrespectful to say yes or to say no, because I'm not allowed to say no anytime. You're just taught at a very young age that your no means disrespectful. And that's one of the things that for your kids to grow up knowing, because it stops them from being able to protect themselves when you're not around.
But you're right. Like, with the whole consent thing, like, they need to know that, well, actually no is an option. Because that's, I think, very important to know.
That's cool. That's really important. Like what you said, it really does build that trust between you and your children, or even just with me, with my nieces and my nephew. Like, my niece is with us right now in the holidays, and I still remind her to this day, like, ever since she was coming, like when me and Baya got together, we got married, I was saying to her, I need you to tell me if anything happens. So I said to her, I don't care. Like, if something's happening to you in anywhere, you have to tell me. And I promise you, I will believe you. And like, I know 100%, like, if something happens anytime, she will actually open up to me. Like, that's a hard, it's not a hard one, or it's hard in reality. It's easy for us to say what needs to be done, but I think
this whole topic and this conversation, and even all the tips and stuff we're giving out, it's not easy. Like, I don't think any of it's gonna be easy, like, right away, but I think you just need to start. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think the sooner you start, the easier it'll get, but making it a constant, like, it's not a conversation that you have once and it's like, okay, I told my kids.
We're done.
They know now, you know, what it is, when they can ask questions, blah, blah, blah. Because it's not that simple, because the world is changing, like, and they're changing. And, you know, they have influences around them that they see or they trust probably more than their parents sometimes. Like, even now as adults, like, who are the first people you run to for advice? Like, my mom, I don't run to my mom. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I will go to my friends, because that's who I kind of feel like can relate to. Really, like, it's a conversation you need to keep having, because the more normal it becomes, I think the less awkward it gets. But I want to get to a point, if I ever have kids, to that like point where I can have those conversations and be like, so comfortable that they can tell you about, you know, things that they're curious about, or things that they've seen, and, you know, they might have questions about. Like,
and that's the thing, like, it comes with life. Like, everyone has to remember, it's part of life. Like, we know that we're meant to have families, and part of the way to make a family is to have sex. Also, like the Bridgerton thing, you know, she had no idea. Like, simple, like, things that you should know that are very important are actually not being spoke about at home.
I think even like the actual workings of sex, sexual intercourse itself, You know, like I've heard of some, you know, pretty sheltered people that have gotten married, and then come wedding night, it's like, it's probably the minority because, you know, but still, I think it's important that you know what to do and when to do it.
And how
Don't you reckon?
Where it goes, yeah, absolutely. Because honestly, it's not even like, you know how everyone just is like, oh, everybody knows. Well, no,
Everyone knows.
Everyone
not
does
everyone
know.
knows. Yeah.
There are honestly a handful of people that have no clue. Do you know what another, sorry, just to quickly, I wanted to touch on, because I just remembered one of the responses that I didn't share, but she was talking about contraception and how Polynesians, because you should, as if you were going to talk about contraception. Because you shouldn't even be having sex.
Like, why do you need contraception? What do you need that for?
They're like, what do you want to know about like exactly? Like whether or not you want them to be having sex or not, but the fact that they could be, you would rather them be prepared. Like all I ever knew about contraception was condoms. Like there's so many other options too, but you don't find those things out until it's too late. Like for my sisters or cousins, like after they'd given birth to their first kid, they figured they found out what the rod was. Do you know what I mean? Like, or had we been told about contraception back in the day, at least we would have known the option was there. Do you know what I mean? But like it wasn't, the importance of it wasn't taught to them. So I don't think they went to have sex thinking, oh my gosh, I could get pregnant. They were just having sex because it felt good. Like, do you know what I mean? Like
they were just being horny.
Well, that's
You're a horny teenager. I don't think that sheltering people
is going to stop them.
I think it defeats the purpose, yeah. So like, you know, at least
so many teen
present it to them, because it's inevitable. People are going to find out about sex. They're going to want to have sex. And if they so choose to have sex,
better to be safe than sorry.
Than sorry.
As much as we don't want to see our kids having sex, you know, early or whatever, at the end of the day, they do make the decision whether they choose to or not, and it's best for them to go in prepared than not.
It's really important that you let your children know that even if they do go through those phases, that it's okay if they do fall pregnant. You'll still be loving and supporting them throughout the rest of the journey.
So just before we close off, once again, thank you to everyone who responded, and sorry if we didn't get to your response. Any last remarks, or you know, that final tip that's just sitting at the tip of your tongue that you need to get out about sex education in the home? We'll start from you, Jolita.
No, just keep it casual. Not casual, but just be normal. Make it normal for your children. Don't make it such, I guess, a scary ordeal for them that they don't want to talk to you about it anymore. But yeah, just trying to normalize all the talk around body parts and boundaries and consent and all that kind of stuff.
I think for me, it would be be consistent. Be very, very vigilant in what you're doing when you are teaching sexual education in your home. I feel like if you prepare your children now, it will prevent them from any harm in the future. Also to prepare them for puberty, prepare them for pregnancy, and prepare them for becoming parents. Because all of those things, if you don't prepare them for it now, could cause some kind of damage in the future or some kind of trauma, I think. So be consistent with people throughout the rest of their lives until they get married and piss off.
I think for me, it would be maybe try and find ways to make the conversation teachable but fun, so it's not so awkward, because it is an awkward conversation. But I think it's going to be like that with every household. But yeah, maybe find new ways. Like we'll actually put some links in the
say it, idiot.
I'm sorry. We'll put some links in the description box of some good websites or even some Instagram handles that we might come across in teaching sex education to your kids or in the home. But yeah, that's pretty much it from us. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are sorry we haven't been very consistent, but it's 2021 and we're coming through with that 2021 energy. We are going to be on top of it. We promise. Hey guys.
Stop saying that. Just don't say it.
I don't make promises. I'm promising them. We are promising them. All right. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time on Under the Fala. Bye.
Bye.